What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another great edition of this podcast that is called The Hit. I am Logan Graffia. He's Calvin Rhines, and today we have another special guest. We have Ronald Riggs from the Jordy Culotta Show. What's up, my guy?
What's up, man? Great to be on here. How y'all doing this morning? Well, not this
I,
morning, this afternoon.
good either way. Good either way. So, we're gonna get right into it. We're gonna touch briefly on. We're gonna call that a preseason game, if you even want to call that a game, because that was just ugly the other day.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, I want to get your take on who you thought stood out the most in the last Saints preseason game. Give me a couple players that you thought kind of stood out.
Well, on the offensive side, I probably have to say Trevor Penning, Chris Olave, and Kirk Merritt. Uh, Kirk Merritt, especially, that's a guy that we've been watching through training camp, and he really has a good story. It's really easy to root for him to try and make the team, but it was really good to see that kick return that he had in the preseason game. He returned that, and he had a few catches too. So, and also the Chris Olave touchdown, I think that's probably what ever Saints fans been waiting to see since the guy got drafted. Chris Olave is just an amazing player. It's so smooth with his route running. It's just so good to see.
The Chris Olave touchdown was very surprising to me, considering it was Ian Bookie at quarterbacks, which leads me to ask you, Calvin. Ronnie already kind of gave us like some players who stood out. So give us some players from your perspective that kind of like took like a downhill turn, like who kind of didn't improve at all.
Um, well, let me just say, I agree with everybody that he said. Definitely, everybody improved, and I'm gonna add someone else to that. John Bostic. That's another example
That's a good one.
Of depth at linebacker. We're all worried about linebacker depth, but him and Chase Hansen going off in those two games, that brings me some confidence there, the linebacker position, and maybe Quan isn't necessary. Starting to feel like that now. But to answer your question, Ian Book, I mean, the guy's still terrible. Nothing has changed. He's still bad. He's still doing scramble drill about every play. His pocket awareness is terrible. He can't place the throws correctly. The guy's he's just not an NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see that now. I think by next week, I mean, we just cut KJ Costello. I don't even think we got to see him. So I
We
think
did.
it was just a pure camp body, which is pretty disappointing because I feel like he would have taken Ian Book's spot. I mean, it wouldn't even take much at this point to take his spot. And I mean, like I said last week, we're really cherry picking here if we're talking about a third string quarterback. I mean, that gives me confidence in our quarterback room a little bit. But in book probably about this time next week will be bagging groceries. So I don't know. So that's what I got.
Well, I kind of can't argue with anybody y'all said that impressed or not impressed. I mean, I knew we was gonna draft the yearbook. I had some intel on that, and I didn't necessarily want him, but I'm like, okay, if we're gonna take him, let's see. And I've been very disappointed ever since we drafted him. It's kind of like another Garrett Grayson.
Yeah.
I know that's going back a ways, but wow. So they made some cuts today. Y'all said KJ Costello was one. Devon Exigbo was another, which was a part of the running back room, which leads me to believe that that running back 3 spot is coming into in fruition right now. We're going to see who's going to have that spot. And y'all know who I love as much as I talk about it on Twitter, Abram Smith. But do you think with that cut of Ozigbo that we might see more from maybe Tony Jones Jr. and maybe even Abram Smith in the next game? I'm gonna go to Ronnie for this one.
Yeah, definitely. Tony Jones Jr., out of all the running backs fighting for a spot, he's the one that has the most experience with the team and most experience in general. So I feel like Tony Jones Jr., that number 3 running back spot is pretty much his to lose at this point. Especially with I wouldn't say poor performances, but that play Abram Smith fumbled at the goal line, they definitely will be looking at that when it comes to determining that running back 3-4 spot.
Well, yeah, I was very disappointed to see that fumble happen because I had to hear about it from everybody. But Calvin, let me ask you this. So hypothetically, if the running back room, because we're just going to say Dwayne Washington is just a special teams ace because that's what he is. Say the running back room was just Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram, and Tony Jones Jr., and then they put Abram Smith on the practice squad. Would you be comfortable with that running back room?
I'll be absolutely comfortable with that running back room. I mean, I remember probably about from the span of 2009 to probably 2014, we always had at least 4 or 5 year running backs that at any given point, all of them can start. And if you look at it, anytime they left the team, they went and go start somewhere else. Chris Ivory started for the Jets, Kyron Robinson, he left off and he started too. Like Tim Hightower was a starter like when he left. So we usually have guys that are starting caliber running backs at third, fourth, even fifth string. So I would be completely comfortable with that. But it's like Raul said, it is probably Tony Jones' spot to lose. He didn't get as many carries, and Devon was pretty good. I think he averaged like 5 yards a carry. Abrams' fumble will probably be the thing that does him in. And I told you that last week that if anything, when you're fighting for a spot, the things that you don't do, if you're a receiver, you don't drop the ball. If you're trying to fight for being a punt return or kick return, you don't muff the ball. When you're a running back, you don't fumble. When you're a quarterback, you don't make mistakes.
And I think it's really like more of like the situation in which he fumbled. I understand it's a preseason game, but coaches are like taking that as if it were a real game. And like when he fumbled at the goal line, you're up 3, you get a touchdown there, like you win the game basically.
And fumbling on the goal line, even for starters in a starting game, you're probably going to not start the next series, But something else that Tony Jones does better, and that's pass blocking. He's picking up the blitzes and picking up extra guys coming free a lot better. And the thing that people don't realize, running backs, a big part of why you see some guys on rosters and some guys not is because of blocking. If you can't pass block as a running back, you're not going to be on the team, especially, just look at when we had Drew Brees. If you're not a pass blocking for Drew Brees, you're not going to be on the team. Mark Ingram is one of the best pass blocking running backs in the entire league. That's why he's as good as he is, and he can also run. So Tony Jones does that really well. So
I can't argue any of that. I can't argue any of that. I mean, a running back isn't just about running between the tackles. You got to block and catch too. And it seems like Tony Jones has been doing a great job of that. He had a terrific block I've seen from the last preseason game against the Packers. He absolutely waylaid somebody. So I'm thinking, because Tony Jones Jr. disappointed last season, but in general, all of last season was a disappointment. But moving forward, let's talk some LSU, because I know my boy Ronnie here loves some LSU football. So, Ronnie, the quarterback room just got thinner. I mean, everyone already knows that. And I remember asking you the week before it happened, I was like, how was the QBs look in practice? How does Miles look? How does Jayden look? And I remember you telling me, ask me that next week. And I don't know if you knew something was up. It seems like something was up. But so far, with Miles not being there anymore, if you had to say BK is going to name this guy the starter tomorrow, who would it be?
I'd have to say Jayden Daniels. And I say Jayden because, all right, Jayden and Nussmeier, they're very similar with the play styles. That's why that's why it's even a battle right now. That's why Brian Kelly is taking his time to name his starter. And also, he's taking his time, but at the same time, he did feel pressure where he had to let Miles Brennan know, listen, we love everything you did, but you won't be the starter this year. They just had to tell him like that. And I even tweeted, I really appreciate that from the LSU coaching staff. Instead of letting this go all the way to September and you have a 3 quarterback race and nobody knows what's going on. But yeah, I probably have to say Jayden Daniels, because another thing Brian Kelly likes, part of the reason why he wanted Miles Brennan back is because he really loves quarterbacks with experience. Jayden didn't play, well, he did play that much at Arizona State, but he didn't probably have the results he probably wanted over there. But at LSU, I feel like he's going to have much more opportunities to get what he wants.
I can't argue that. I absolutely love Jayden Daniels, and you can ask my co-host here, Calvin. Like when we first got him, I texted him right away. I was like, "Oh my goodness, we just got Jayden Daniels at LSU! Oh my goodness!" Because I started watching Arizona State a lot more because when Herm Edwards was hired, I'm like, "Oh shoot, I'll root for Herm Edwards. I freaking love the guy." So I got to watch him from the time he was a freshman, and I'm just thinking, wow, if he can make people like N'Keal Harry, Brandon Ayuk look that good, Imagine what he's going to look like with someone like Keishon Boutte and all the other weapons around him.
Like LSU will really give him like the opportunities to really show what he can do, because he won't have to worry about making everybody else better, because on the offensive side of the ball, this is probably one of the most loaded LSU teams in a while. And that's saying something, because LSU always has a loaded offense.
Now there's a lot of transfers that LSU got in the transfer portal. It almost was like free agency to them this year. And one guy that I was very happy that we picked up was in the receiving room. We got literally from right down the road in Lafayette, Kyron Lacey. You've been at a lot of the practices. What have you seen out of him? And do you think he's just wide receiver number 2 right now underneath Boutte?
So Kyron, like you said, he's a transfer from UL, and I'm from the Lafayette area, so I watched a lot of UL games and stuff. So when Kyron first got here in the spring, he honestly did have to. It took some time for him to really adjust being around SEC caliber competition like that. But in the fall, when we seen a few of his practices, he's looked much more confident. And Brian Kelly said that Kyron Lacey's biggest thing is his confidence. He has to believe in him, because they said athletically, he's gifted. Like, he's got it. The tools are there. He just has to put it together for himself. And I believe he can do that.
I think so too, because I watched a lot of Cajun games too, and he just looked phenomenal. And I'm happy with the talent that LSU is getting. So my question to you, Calvin, is: do you think with Jayden as the quarterback this year that they can go, let's say, top 10 in the rankings?
I think so. I mean, LSU, you could argue every year, minus, a couple years ago, has a team that can go top 10. I mean, it's kind of like an Alabama situation. LSU is just at that point to where they are expected to be top 10 at any given year, any given point. And Brian Kelly, he is a winning coach. And I think Jayden Daniels, especially, and adding, Kyron Lacey and all these other guys. And they had a pretty good recruiting class this year. So I think that you are going to see a team that's going to bounce back, because LSU football has been down for the past couple of years. But I think you are going to see this team be top 10. Now, I say that as high, like if everything's perfect, I think the highest that they'll go is probably 5, maybe 6. But top 10, I think they should definitely hover around that 10th, 9th spot for a lot of the year.
So going back to Ronnie, so this offense under Denbrock, do you think they're going to run it kind of to what Cincinnati did with Ritter the last 2 years at quarterback, with like how they're going to use Jayden? Are they going to use him like how Cincinnati used Ritter, you think?
Well, see, that's really interesting, because the thing with Brian Kelly, this is an interesting stat. He's used 2 quarterback systems 6 times in his career when he was at Notre Dame. So I really wouldn't be surprised to see him run out a 2 quarterback system.
That is very interesting. I have not seen a 2 quarterback system at LSU in a long time. I think the last time we did it, we used with Russell Shepard and Jordan Jefferson, right? I mean, Jordan Jefferson and Jarrett Lee.
Yeah.
And that didn't really work out too great.
Well, it worked.
Hey, George Jefferson, he was kind of nice. Just low key though.
He low key.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it worked for a while. It didn't work in the end, but it worked. They got there.
It is true they did get there, but that Bama game was just ugly. I don't like us losing in the Superdome, but so end result, I have us finishing 10-2. I know everyone has us having single-digit wins and whatever, but I see this team right now with as much depth and how deep this LSU football team is for the first time, I think, since the Saban era, that I think they can go 10-2 and finish with the number 6 ranking, like Calvin was saying. And so, with that being said, do you think they can finish with a 10-2 ranking and hit that 6 ranking, Ronald?
I definitely agree with the 10-2 ceiling. I definitely believe the ceiling for this team is very high. Do I think they actually will go 10-2 personally? No, I do see 8-4, however. I do think that this team is better than a losing season team. If we have a season like we've had the last 2 seasons, I definitely will be shocked, because this team is, the coaching staff is much more prepared to handle the current roster. And you couldn't really say that for the last 2 years. And we've seen that on the field.
Yeah, the last 2 years under it went from being godly like to just ugh. I
And
mean,
of course, there was a lot of turnover. There was a lot of players leaving. There were coaches leaving, but it really starts at the head of it all. Like if everything starts to fall when a lot of few pieces goes, then everybody starts going to the head because, you know.
so I'm gonna ask both of you this. I'm gonna go to Ronald first. Who is one player in practice or just on this LSU team that is so underrated that no one is talking about that you think is just gonna absolutely just shine this year?
So let's see. There's a lot of guys I think that are underrated, but at the same time, they do get the recognition they deserve. So I'll give you two. I'll say on the offensive side, probably Malik Neighbors, and on the defensive side, Harold Perkins, a linebacker. Um, Harold Perkins is a true freshman, and right now he is projected to get. Brian Kelly said he's projected to be a heavy rotation piece as a true freshman. I think he would be the only true freshman starter, well, not starter, but the only true freshman in the rotation on defense.
So, Calvin, with that being said, who do you think on this LSU roster? Who's just one? Just name me one, because I know you're more worried about your Louisiana Tech guys in that Missouri game y'all got coming up. But just give me one guy, because I know you've been paying attention. Who's just
Okay.
one?
Well, I'm gonna play a little favoritism here. I don't know where he is on the depth chart, but I know he got some snaps last year. I want to say my boy Cameron Wire on the offensive line. I grew up with the guy. I know him. Last time I talked to him, he said it was all going well. Hopefully he's getting a lot of reps with ones or even twos, and he's a pretty solid guy. I've had great competitions with him growing up when we were going head to head all the time in high school. So hopefully one day we could go get each other one more time. But I'm gonna say my boy Cameron Wire.
I'm going to give y'all one. I mean, it's another ULL transfer. Makai Garner, the corner. I mean, just good God. The two ULL guys, I don't like playing favoritism, but those two guys on ULL's team was a big part of what Billy Napier loved and how they were successful. And I think Garner, he's going to, if I'm not mistaken, he's going to wind up being a number 2 corner at LSU this season. And I'm sure Ronald sees how great he is in practice. He's just absolutely a dog, is he not?
Yeah, Makai, he's amazing. Him and Seven Banks, they are projected to be the 2 starting corners for this season.
Man. It's just I've not been more excited about an LSU football team in a very long time. And I remember someone came into the station that I work for the other day and they compared this LSU team to 2018 LSU, the year right before the national championship. And I thought, okay, that's actually a great comparison. I think this actually will be kind of like 2018, where we're going to be figuring it out. We're not going to be awful. We're just going to kind of be maybe, like I said, 10-2. We're not going to probably blow anybody out unless it's probably Southern. I hate to say that, but I think at least by next year we should be top 4, top 3 competing for a championship. And so, with that being said, do you think that comparison of the 2018 team kind of fits this roster, Ronnie?
Yeah, like I said, I really see the ceiling for this team being 10-2. So 10-2, that's a New Year's Six Bowl. Like that's good. Like you get that next year, you're probably starting off the season ranked top 5, top 10. Just go from there. So I definitely do see the parallels in this. Like you said, probably not gonna blow anybody. Probably not gonna blow out that many SEC teams. Let me say that. But I do believe that we can steal some games. Like we can win games we're not favored to win. Such as like in 2018 when we beat Georgia. We were not Georgia was like number 2 and we were like number 9. We were not projected to beat Georgia that year, but we still did in Tiger Stadium.
It is going to be a fun year. What game are you most excited about? Like, because I know everyone has Tiger Stadium. I mean, the LSU Southern Game circled on that calendar. That one has to be absolutely wild. I mean, do you think the whole city's going to come out to that one?
Definitely. They've been talking about it since like since it was announced, really. Since that game was announced, they've been talking about like, oh my God, like the traffic's gonna be crazy. Like which roads they're gonna have to close off to stop this because like that's the thing about Baton Rouge. Like it's only one way in. Like you gotta going east and west. There's only one way in. So it's a lot of traffic, but it's gonna really be fun. It's gonna be worth it. It's gonna be a reason why so many people are out there. I can't wait.
So we are at the end of the show, and my last question to you is: you work on the Jordy Culotta Show. Tell us about all the great things that not only you are doing, but also other ways that they can watch the Jordy Culotta Show.
So what I am, I'm a social media manager, meaning well, let's see, how can I explain this? So the Jordy Culotta Show is the main podcast that we're on, and we're really all part of this network of digital media called FM Digital Media, which includes 3 different podcasts: the Jordy Culotta Show, Mic'd Up, hosted by former LSU baseball player Mikey Mata, and Where My Dog's At, hosted by Rohan Davey, former LSU quarterback. Those are our 3 shows. I help cut up the clips and stuff, post them out on all the social medias, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all of that. We cover the matter of fact, at about 2, 3 o'clock, I'll probably be heading out to New Orleans for the practice in the dome later.
And I shall see you out there. So
Yes,
I
sir.
wanted to say thank you for taking the time to be a guest on this show. I've been wanting to have you on for a little bit, but I know scheduling conflicts, everything like that. And when I told Calvin, I said, hey, we gotta get this guy on the show, he said, message him as soon as you can. So I just, like I said, we want to thank you for coming on, and I'd love to have you back.
Sure, anytime, man. Just let me know.
With that being said, you guys, I am Logan Graffia. He is the great Calvin Rons with special guest Ronnie Riggs. We shall see you guys next time.